You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the weekly Keep Canada Weird discussion series. If you're new here, Keep Canada Weird is the venue in which my pal, handsome Aaron Airport, and I seek out and explore the more offbeat Canadian news stories from the past week. In tonight's episode, which we recorded on the evening of April 23rd, 2023, Aaron and I do our best to balance the majesty and absurdity that grips our great nation. We're going to discuss the $20 million-ish Toronto airport heist. We're going to question the backstory of a bear that drank 69 cans of pop. We'll hear of an Alberta man's very shitty situation. And we'll end with a snake attack at the Edmonton Zoo. So let's get into it. Handsome Aaron Airport. It's Sunday night, my friend, April 23rd. You got anything to say about the date or the time of year?
It's spring is in the air. I think that's all I can say about it. When you're outside and the sun is shining and it's above zero, you're like, we're getting there. We're getting there.
It's late April.
Yeah, it's late April.
Right. When we last talked about a week ago, you were hyping up your big show with your band, the Gordons. That's the Bare Naked Ladies tribute band. You were playing a couple shows this past week at the Highland Arts Theatre in Cape Breton. We're all dying to know how did it go?
It went very well. We're all very happy with it. We had 3 shows throughout the week. Our last show was Friday night. We actually had a few Keep Canada Weird listeners show up to the show.
Were they sober?
I didn't do a drug and alcohol test on them, so I can't officially state.
Okay. Did they represent the listenership of the show?
Yes, they did. Yeah, they seemed weird. So, all
right.
No, good. They seemed very lovely. They seemed a nice couple that showed up, and they came up after the show. They came up to the stage and they called me salty. As longtime listeners will know that that was a term thrown around about me being salty.
Rather loosely.
Yeah. So anyway, they were calling me salty, and then I didn't quite understand what they meant, and then they explained that they were Keep Canada Weird listeners, and then I was like, oh, that's why you're calling me salty. Okay. I was reaching for my bear spray. Spray them down.
We got a lot to get into tonight. We got to keep Canada weird, but we also got to receive feedback from prior episodes from our listeners. We got a voice memo here sent in from Bailey, and this is interesting because it's actually Bailey giving more information on a prior voice mail she sent to us several weeks back. Do you recall the story of Bailey and her mother? She recounted a story where a bat attacked her and her mom, and her, there was this whole big drama on how they captured the bat.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, during our discussion about that incident and that voice memo she sent in, we had a few questions about, how this whole thing happened. She sent us a voice memo giving that information. So here's what Bailey has to say.
Hi, Jordan. Hi, Aaron. I'm the one that sent in a story a couple weeks ago through a voice memo about a bat that flew into my house. I was referring to an episode in the summer, I think it was. So it's a little bit past back, but it was so funny to hear myself on the podcast. And I immediately sent it to my sister, and she laughed about it too because she knew about the story. But I wanted to touch base a little bit about what happened because, Jordan, you had questions. You were like, why did they put underwear on their head? And I felt like, Aaron, maybe you got it because I felt like maybe you heard the same thing that I've heard. But it was obviously a spur-of-the-moment situation. We never had a bat fly into our house. But the first thing Mom said was that they'll get into your hair. You don't want a bat tangled up in your hair. So that's why we ran to the bedroom, and she came out of her closet with the underwear on her head, and that's where the funny story happened. But I don't know if that's true. The bat definitely did not even fly towards us. It was more flying towards the skylight in our house and the ceiling, and just kind of freaking out, wanting to get out. But yeah, I wanted to touch base on that because I probably should have mentioned that's why we put the underwear on our head. we both have long hair. Anyways, thank you for listening, and I am so excited to tune in the podcast every week. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Okay, well, I guess it's good to explain why you had underwear on your head in that story. So, and how meta is it? She enjoyed hearing herself on the podcast. She's now getting to hear herself discuss hearing herself on the podcast
Yeah. It's like one of those kind of mirror situations where it goes on forever.
Yeah.
A reflection into a reflection into a reflection.
Yeah, let us know what it's like hearing yourself discuss your experiences hearing yourself on the podcast.
Send another voice memo. Yeah. And then every week we'll play a voice memo from you. And
just to see how that story evolves.
Yeah, but I just want to say, I don't think anyone should ever have to defend why they're wearing underwear on their head.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think if it gets to that point and you end up in a situation where you have underwear on your head, you're just living your life, and sometimes things take interesting turns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the answer is always my underwear, my business.
Yeah.
Now, if it's someone else's underwear, then that's a different.
I'd say you owe them an explanation.
Yeah, just the person who legally owns the underwear. Mm-hmm. We've gotten to the bottom of this. Great.
Yeah. One quick thing before we get into the stories of Keep Canada Weird, there's just another kind of public service announcement I want to address. There's been a recall that's affecting Canadians across the country. It's quite notable. Let's just hear this and then we can get on with the stories.
Mm-hmm. Stories, yeah.
Health Canada has issued a recall for more than 50,000 sledgehammers because the heads can loosen and unexpectedly detach during use. Not good. The recalls are for various models of Stanley, Fatmax, and DeWalt sledgehammers. Health Canada is warning customers to immediately stop using them. As of March the 15th, there was one reported incident in Canada we know of, and nearly 200 in the United States. Affected customers can contact Stanley Black & Decker for a refund.
The idea of the hammer end of a sledgehammer slipping off in use, that's a pretty serious defect.
Especially in a sledgehammer. Yeah, that's of all hammers to have that defect, the sledgehammer is the scariest one.
I just wonder what they tested before they sold that thing. Did they just look, the paint's on there, it's the right shape?
I'm sure they do some kind of a test. They must, but
does that test include using the sledgehammer and, to making sure that the heavy business end doesn't go flying off when you're swinging the thing?
I mean, what else would you test on it? Wouldn't that be the only test that you would run?
You would think. I'm just surprised that it gets to the point that it's a recall. And that, like a sledgehammer, if you lift that up and that thing goes flying behind you, my goodness, that could lead to serious problems.
Weren't several people injured because of this defect?
How could you possibly survive if someone's swinging a sledgehammer and the top hammer business end part goes flying and smacks you?
Well, it depends on at what point it comes off. Like if you're raising it all the way back over your head after you've already hit the thing that you were hitting and it falls off at that point, then it's kind of, maybe the momentum is not as great as it would be if you were swinging it down and it came off. I don't know. I mean, you're not really in the track of it when you're swinging it, so it would have to come off and then drop down maybe, and it would still hurt. But
like as you're lifting the sledgehammer,
it up, or someone's behind
it would be like
you
cartoon.
And it comes off and they get hit,
or even your own head. I can picture it like a cartoon. You lift the sledgehammer quickly, the thing goes flying up in the air and just lands directly down on your head. You'd be done, right?
I don't think you'd be done, but I think you'd be injured.
I think so too. Well, either way, that wasn't a story that we were going to discuss. I just want to get it out there. If anyone has one of these sledgehammers, now's a good time to bring it back to Canadian Tire and be like, what the F?
Yeah. Now it's time to make a lot of life changes.
Well, we got to get into the story. You know darn well what our mandate is here. We have to keep Canada weird by seeking out and highlighting unique and unusual and offbeat Canadian news stories from the past week. And we got a loaded card tonight. We're going to be talking about the Toronto airport heist. We're going to talk about a burping bear, or at least I assume it's burping afterwards. We're going to talk about, and cover your ears, children, a shitty situation.
Oh.
And then we're going to, yeah, I said it. And then we're going to hear about a snake attack. Where do you want to start this?
Shall we start with the heist? That's the big one.
It's the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
We got to get into it. I'm all for like true crime and crime stories, but I really like a good heist story, especially when it's that kind of, someone goes in a bank with like a gun or something. I think that's boring. But when it's done like Mission Impossible style and you're sneaking through the vents of the bank and you're like scaling down through these weird sensors and, avoiding all these high-end security systems, I'm all for like that kind of
You support
heist
it and you
story.
want people to do it. Is that what you're saying?
No.
It sounded like
but
your
if you're
wording was very much in support of anyone who pulls off a heist like this should be.
Well, I guess let me say it like this is like if someone's really good at what they do and they're passionate in their work, I enjoy hearing about it. Whether it's a landscaper who takes incredible care to make sure the edges on the lawn are perfect. And if you're going to do heists, show like some pride in the work you do and make it notable and professional.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure. We still don't really know how professional this heist was in terms of.
Well, I don't know how professional it is, but they sure got a lot of money. This is, I think, maybe the largest heist in Canadian airport history, if not up there. And it's just happened at the Toronto Pearson Airport. Listen to this.
Good evening, everyone. Airports around the world have become tantalizing targets for thieves who have grabbed a fortune in stolen cargo over the years. And tonight, the hunt is on to track down who is behind a stunning and brazen heist at a warehouse near Toronto's Pearson, where $20 million worth of gold and other valuables vanished. CTV's Heather Wright starts us off.
The plane landed at Toronto's Pearson Airport Monday night. Police won't say where it came from or where it was heading, but confirmed that on board that flight was a container full of gold and other valuable items.
Once this cargo was offloaded at a holding facility, subsequent to its arrival, this high-value container was removed by illegal means from the holding facility.
Who took it and how, all part of the investigation being led by Peel Regional Police. Officers estimate the size of the container was roughly 5 or 6 square feet, so likely would have been difficult to move. Police wouldn't speculate on whether this heist was an inside job or if organized crime may have been involved.
We're looking at all angles on how this item was stolen, so I don't really have a lot of details on how it was stolen to provide or any suspect.
Police stressed today they believe this is an isolated incident and there's no threat to people traveling through Pearson Airport. They're now combing through surveillance video, trying to determine how thieves were able to make off with such valuable cargo.
So let's talk this out. I have a few ideas. So the first kind of decision we need to make is, do we think this is theft? Like, did someone do this and take it? The other option, like, you only gotta, I feel like everyone I know that travels ends up like having some kind of issue with their luggage, either being lost or delayed. So I when I hear this story, I can't help but think like, did Air Canada lose like $20 million in gold and they're like, investigating it as a theft at this point, but it's really just on some plane out in BC somewhere or something?
They should really be putting air tags in these things. I think that's
yeah, that's right. Hey, like my mom does that. She has like the little Apple tag thing she puts in her
Everybody
suitcase.
is putting air tags in their luggage now. Why? Especially if I were to be shipping millions of dollars worth of gold and whatever else, you're darn well tooting I'm going to have an air tag in there.
Why would it be like? It seems like it's a commercial flight. At least that was what the photos and in the video and the news clip make it appear. But I wonder, like, if you were sending, I don't know, $20 million of gold somewhere, I guess it would have to just go on a plane and it would go through airports and stuff. Yeah. But it just seems weird to think that stuff, like when you're getting on and off the airplanes on your way to Florida, there could be, like, I don't know, like bodies in the storage thing because people died and they're getting their bodies shipped back, or there could be like tons of money or gold and stuff. There's this kind of other world that exists at airports beyond just, recreational and business travel. If it is a theft and for whatever reason they didn't put an air tag on it, it must be an inside job. Why would you randomly choose this 5 square foot box? Like, that's probably full of PlayStations or something.
The people knew it was going to be there, obviously. because this isn't just a random box they took. Like, we're going to break in and we'll just kind of grab the box that we think is valuable.
The heaviest, biggest box, and we'll run
like
with
they
it.
knew it was going to be there, and then they knew where it was. So that information, I guess, would have to come from someone on the inside.
Mm-hmm. I saw a little short interview with kind of an expert in airport and aviation security that said in a situation like this, when there's like a large or high value package coming through an airport, there's usually about a dozen people that would be aware of it. So it's like, if it is an inside job, it's not a large group of people that they would have to, get into who did it or who was involved.
See, if we were watching the movie version of this story right now, long before the heist, there would be all of these kind of explanations as to how we got to this point of how this was stolen. And I imagine that perhaps an airline employee, maybe their family was threatened, and be like, tell us when the next big value ticket is going to be, or whatever it is that kind of made them kind of confess it, because they signed non-disclosure agreements to know that information.
Yeah, they would have to.
Yeah,
right?
I saw someone
And you would
say
also
in one of the interviews, or one of the things I was reading about this, is that any of those airport employees who knew about this would have signed non-disclosure agreements about.
And yeah, that makes sense. And there would be enough higher value cargo coming through that they would also probably need criminal reference checks and background checks and all that. So it's interesting. Do you think they'll get to the bottom of it? I'm of course neither of us are an expert in airport security, but with security cameras all over the place and a good list of who's coming and going,
I think they probably have a lot of the information they need to solve this. It's just a matter of they're not releasing that information until they solve it, because they don't want to compromise the investigation. So I think they probably have a fair amount of evidence leading them in the right direction to this. It's just a matter of when they actually catch these people, then they'll be able to release a lot of that at that point in time.
Do you want to move on to a heist that we can solve? Because I don't think we're going to get to the bottom. We don't know enough
unless
about this
it was one of us.
heist.
Yeah, I don't. That'd be the only way we're solving it tonight.
I don't have $20 million in gold. I know
if
that.
I did, I wouldn't be saying on a podcast. So
good point. Yeah, let's move on. I don't want to put you in a corner and get you to admit anything that you're not prepared to admit.
Don't put baby in a corner.
Let's move on to a heist we can solve. This one does not take place in Toronto. It takes place in British Columbia, and it doesn't involve a gang of organized crime, heist, Mission Impossible type of people. It's just a simple black bear. And the heist was not $20 million. It was 69 cans of pop. I love this story. Here it is.
A woman on the Sunshine Coast was shocked to find a bear had turned her Jeep into its very own cooler. That sound broke the silence in Earls Cove at around 3 last Thursday morning. Turned out it was a bear smashing through the canopy of a Suzuki, trying to get at 6 cases of pop inside. Sharon Roselle had purchased the pop for her food truck business and thought there was no way a bear could smell the soda through a closed can.
The whole bottom of the vehicle was swimming. The only other thing in the car besides the pop was paper towel. And he did bring it from the back to the front. He just did nothing with it. I did not go outside. I've been known to chase off bears before, but my husband said he was very glad I stayed inside and kept safe. Now, had it been his beer, I was obligated to go out and fight to the death, but it was only pop.
The bear went through the Orange Crush first, then moved on to the root beer, ultimately drinking 69 of the 72 cans in the vehicle. It left behind 3 diet pops.
Orange Crush, then root beer. Not so interested in the diet pop. Do you think the bear could sense like the artificial sweetener and stuff in a diet pop and just be like, I'm not interested?
See, this is why I think this heist was an inside job as well.
Oh, elaborate.
Well, usually a bear, if it's going to go into a car or, a tent or something for food, it smells it, right? Like it smells food. There's something left open. One of the rules they
Mhm.
say when you're camping is make sure you put seal up any food, put it in the car, all of those things that we follow. But in this situation, like a bear's not going to smell pop from a distance away and then break into a car to drink the pop. The bear's going in there because someone told the bear that the pop was in there.
Oh, that's a good point. I see where you're going. Yeah. Because he's not going to smell. Why would a bear bite through an unscented aluminum can?
Exactly. So now,
like a pop can should be as appetizing to the bear as the aluminum door or the front fender.
There's no scent. Even a bear is not going to smell through an aluminum can. And who I think is responsible, and I think who's the inside informant is the husband. Because she mentioned at the end of the story that, if it was beer or whatever, he would have been sending me out there to protect it, or whatever she said.
Yeah, he brought his beer. He brought his beer.
Yeah. So the thing is that I think he's upset that she bought all that pop and not more beer. So then he told the bear that the pop was there and to get it.
Yeah, I think probably to understand the motivation, we need to know a little bit more about what goes on behind closed doors in that house. And I don't think, the news report, obviously we're talking about the lamestream media here, and they didn't dig into the story deep enough to tell us what happened. I'd need to know a bit of history on their marriage.
I like to imagine that their marriage is in turmoil.
And this is just the next round.
This is the straw that's going to break the married camel's back.
What do you think of the amount of pop? Like over almost 70 cans of pop. Even for a bear, he must have felt awful after that. Could you imagine what your belly would feel
imagine the sound of the burps that this bear was going to be belching after drinking 69 cans of pop in one sitting.
Oh my goodness.
But the bear probably wasn't intaking all of that pop.
That's true. She said herself, her back seat, like the chewed up cans were like swimming in pop.
Yeah.
So he would probably bite a can, get one mouthful,
and then
swallow
bite another can, and then etc. Yeah. I can't see the bear walking away, because the bear would not have kept, if the bear was drinking full cans of pop, I doubt it would have kept going. It just liked the sweet taste. That's all it was.
If he did, assuming it was a male bear, if the bear did drink the full cans, imagine how cool that would be to see the bear actually, because the only way it could drink the full can really is like grabbing it with its hand and dumping it, or I guess it could just bite it and just kind of inhale at the same
way
time,
a which would be brother does, when they they pierce it and then they suck it all back from the side of the can.
That's basically what it was doing with its teeth. So we have the narrative of it was an inside job and there's marriage trouble in paradise sort of thing. My other thought could have been, do you ever buy, it could be pop or it could be just like a big thing of milk or something, and maybe when it was shipping, one of them leaked and you pick up the carton and it's just all sticky and gross on the outside. I hate when that happens. But I was kind of thinking in this story, there could have been a chance that she just bought all this pop at Costco or something, and during shipping, a couple pop burst and there was just a bunch of sticky, sappy stuff on the containers. That's just another.
But to smell it through a car, even to smell that through a car, I find it a little far-reaching. I'm not a bear expert, so I should state that for the record.
Okay.
I know you probably thought I was when you hired me, but
because
we do cover a lot of bear stories.
Oddly enough, right? But I looked at this from multiple angles. I don't see how this could play in any way to the uprising of animals across Canada. I think this is just an isolated incident of an inside job.
Yeah,
and this bear managed.
It reminds me of a bag of bagels I bought a couple weeks ago at a grocery store, and I went up to pay for them at the register, and then the guy ringing me through was like, "Oh, do you still want these?" And then he pointed to the bottom of them, and it was torn from a rat or whatever, and a bunch of the bottom bagel was all chewed up, and there was all these rip marks on the bottom of the bag. Yeah, so always check your anytime you're buying bread or bagels or whatever from a grocery store, always check the bag first, because I didn't notice it when I picked it up. It wasn't until the guy at the register noticed it.
Yeah, that's a keen eye on him. Good. That saved you some trouble for sure. I have a bread story. I was buying bread one time. I was with my brother at the grocery store in Halifax. It was Sobeys, and I was just grabbing a loaf of bread and reached forward, put my hand on like a loaf of whole wheat bread, and as I was taking it off the shelf to put it into my cart, I had an extreme pain in my hand, and I dropped the bread to the ground. And when I realized, like, what happened, because my hand hurt really bad, I looked to my right, and there was a little old lady who looked like the most stereotypical witch, holding her cane up like a weapon. And then clued in, like, oh my God, she just hit me with the cane. And before I even had a chance to say anything, in like this horrific voice, she said, "Dempster's is sour." Dempster's is like the brand of bread.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, like, you don't like Dempster's, I guess. And she said again, "Dempster's is sour." And then I just kind of stepped back, put a different one in my cart, and like got out of there. Wow. And I even said to my brother, like, did that really happen? Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
That's my bread story.
Wow, we covered bread tonight.
All right, so we talked about the scent and the smell of things became a bit of a part of the storyline in the story of the bear. But scent and smell, I think, are going to play a bit bigger part in this next story. This earlier on, I said a bad word. I said we're going to be discussing a shitty situation. This is a situation that played out just last Sunday in Alberta, and it involves a man inside a septic tank. This I find disturbing. Luckily, the septic tank hadn't been used for some time, but trigger warning for people with weak stomachs. This next story does involve a man inside a tank that was home to human feces and urine for a long time. Here's what happened.
It was a walk Greg Saunier and Emily Rawson have done before, but this week, while strolling through this Okotoks field, something happened to turn the normal into the nerve-wracking.
We noticed a little bit later that we couldn't find her dog, Buck.
Buck, this couple's dog, was gone, but just not out of earshot.
He was barking really loud, screaming almost, and that's when I realized I think he's somewhere in the ground.
Lucky for Buck, Rawson was able to act fast.
She just happened to notice this hole in the ground, but it was covered in like tall, dark grass.
But the dog was now trapped in a septic tank. Its head was barely bobbing above the cold water, and its swimming was slowing. So Saunier jumped in. It's a move that saved Buck, but passing the dog out...
that forced him into the water, fully submerged.
I was feeling weaker and just kind of in shock.
Now Saunier was stuck. Panic was setting in as he tread the stale water, mercifully not full of human waste.
I just kind of kept saying to myself, this is it. This isn't how we're going.
Minutes that felt like hours passed. Eventually, Okotoks firefighters arrived to the open field.
Because I just kind of laid on the ground.
Saunier and Buck were rescued and are now all right, but the couple still doesn't really understand what happened.
This was really common for us to come explore.
There was no signage, there was no fences, gates, or anything.
It's just crazy to me that we never had any idea that this was there.
Rules are in place to ensure septic tanks are closed and locked. Obviously, this one wasn't. Emergency crews now have it blocked off until a more permanent fix is found.
I would never want to fall into one of those things. This man, but then again, I think I would maybe risk my life for a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And that appears to be what this man did. That could have ended badly, right?
Oh yeah, it could have. Yeah. And yeah, brave guy. I mean, I like to think I would have done the same thing. You know, if my cat fell in a septic tank, I'd be jumping right in there to save him. So
for people who can't see the news report, this septic tank, from the point of view that they are walking through a field, it looks like it's just this grown-in field in the middle of nowhere, and in the tall grass is just like a hole about the size of a manhole that leads down into probably somewhere around 5 to 8 feet tall tank under the ground. So it would, if you were out in that field with the dog, it would very much just look like the dog just disappeared. Luckily, they could hear the barking, and he was brave enough to dive in to the, I think they said in the news report, the mercifully it was free of human waste. It was just stale water that had been sitting there. It still would have been disgusting.
Yeah, still water is probably ripe with bacteria too.
Oh yeah, it'd just be like diving into a swamp, and it would be a dark swamp. Now I would have, just hearing that story, I had a bit of a panic attack. Like just this idea of like looking up at a hole, like with the sun above you or the earth above you, and her yelling down like, "You all right?"
Yeah, I'm claustrophobic too, so I freak out for that reason too, like being down in there trying to get yourself out, feeling like you're gonna drown or be buried alive, whatever that feeling is that comes over you when you, oh God, terrifying.
That'd be an awful way to go in an abandoned septic tank. Whoever the property owner is, he's lucky that nothing worse happened, because I think you could probably find yourself in some liability trouble having a not fenced off or sealed septic tank. Like it's probably expensive to dig them up and get rid of them, but you'd think like for something like this, it would either be like capped off or full of gravel.
Yeah,
or
it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be covered or fenced around or whatever the case is. That's what they're supposed to do. And I think they say at the end of the story that the property owner has been informed that they have to cover it up or whatever.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet they do have to. Yeah, but that could have ended poorly. Is that guy a hero for diving in there?
Oh yeah, total hero. I don't often label people as heroes on this show, but this man, I will, in a rare circumstance, call him a hero.
You discussed being claustrophobic, having a fear of finding yourself in a small, dark place and suffocating or worse. Our next story kind of hints to that. So I kind of fear bringing this up to you. How do you feel about snakes? Are you all right with them?
I have no issue with snakes. I have no particular fear. Some people have a very snake-specific fear. I don't have I see them on walking trails quite often, small, garden snakes or whatever. They don't bother me. I've never been in the presence of a snake like this, but
yeah, like the snakes that we see in Cape Breton aren't a lot larger than like, as far as thickness goes, like a pencil or maybe a Sharpie or something. The snake we're going to be talking about is a Burmese python at the Edmonton Zoo, and it is not the kind of snake you see when you're out walking. We're talking about a 15-year-old, 75 kilogram, 3.6 meter long snake. So this thing is a beast. It's basically like a sleeping bag of muscle.
Yeah,
well, how I see it, with a giant.
I think like a really long pantyhose filled with muscle
and teeth and like digestive system.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hear why we're talking about this giant snake on the show.
An emergency this morning at the Edmonton Valley Zoo. A staff member was rushed to hospital after being bit by one of the animals. Emergency crews were called to the zoo just before 8:30 this morning. The city tells CTV News a zoo employee was bitten by a Burmese python. The woman in her 30s received first aid immediately from other employees before paramedics arrived. She was taken to hospital in stable condition, and we are told she is doing well. The city says all of the reptiles at the Valley Zoo are non-venomous and that this particular snake has been at the zoo since 2016 and has not previously demonstrated any aggressive behavior. They are not elaborating on how the incident happened.
I wouldn't want to work at a zoo if it involved handling giant snakes, but I guess I'm glad there are people who have that passion and do look after these things. What do you think of this story?
Well, they haven't elaborated on how the incident happened. So why is that? Why aren't they saying more about this? And
they could have something to hide. Maybe they're worried about fallout in some way. Maybe people won't want to go to the zoo. Why? What do you think?
I don't know. I have no idea why they wouldn't give any more details about, because that's what when I was listening to this story earlier, I was like, well, how did it happen? What led to her getting bit by this snake? And it doesn't give any information about that.
Well, you know what fills the vacuum of information? If there's no information, what will fill it is a conspiracy theory. If they don't tell people what happened, people are going to find their own explanation.
Yeah.
They also describe it as biting. The worker, the 30-year-old worker, was bit by the snake. But as far as I know, snakes that size, they generally don't, like, they do bite, but it's more so like wrapping around and squeezing to death.
Yeah, they might
Like, did she get
swallow you.
Yeah, like, did she get bit and then the thing wrapped around and tries to squeeze her to death? Was there a sort of struggle where other zoo employees are trying to peel this giant, what did you describe it as? Stocking?
Like a
pantyhose of
of
muscle?
muscle. Yeah.
Like, what would you?
I think,
would be-
sometimes people maybe, okay, this is the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head in terms of what could have led. So this employee's been working there for a while and maybe starts to talk to the snake, right? A lot.
Okay.
And then starts to maybe develop the kind of relationship where the snake is still just a snake and it's just there doing its snaky thing. But she's talking to it every day and she's telling the snake about her life problems, and she's going through a divorce and she's just gone through bankruptcy and she's got all these problems, right? And she talks to the snake about it and she feels like the snake is listening, but the snake isn't really listening. It's just there being a snake. So then after a while of her talking to her problems to the snake, she needs a hug, she needs a hug. So she's like, you know what? Like, I just feel like you get me, snake. You get me. You understand. You're the only thing in this world that truly listens to me. Then the snake is just being there like, I'm a snake. If you come near me, I'm going to bite you. But it's, it doesn't speak English. So anyway, she's like, I'm going to hug this snake because you're my only friend. And then she goes in. She has access. She's an employee. She hugs the snake. Snake says, I'm a snake, and then bites her.
And I do what snakes do. Oh, that's kind of a sad story, Aaron.
Yeah, it's like a modern Adam and Eve type situation.
It's a bite of the poison apple.
Yeah, the poisonous apple.
Except it's a hug of the
snake
wild
who you thought was your friend. And then the snake quickly reminded you, nah, I'm a snake.
Yeah, I don't know what the story is here, but she's lucky to be alive.
Is she?
I dare say. I should be careful saying that because I actually got bad feedback once from a listener who wrote that didn't like that I said someone was lucky to be alive.
Yeah, we don't know any of the details of their miserable life, so.
That's a good point. You hear these stories, someone like attacked, like bit by a shark that they're training or something, or like bit by the snake as an example. These people will often go back and just continue to work at the zoo and be like,
yeah, just another day, I guess.
How do they do it?
Well, like, my kind of philosophy on it is that if you're in the ocean, you're in shark territory. You get bit by a shark, it's your fault. No matter what you're doing in the ocean, you're in shark's territory. These are still animals that are completely different from us, and we've got these animals in cages for our pleasure, and sometimes zoos are filled with like rescue animals and things like that. I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's just, we've got one. We want to charge people to come and look at it. They're wild animals, and you go near one, you get bit. That's on you. That's all I have to say about it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad she's all right. I'm glad there were other employees there because, like, this idea, like, say the prior story with the septic tank, if there hadn't have been the young woman walking with the hero and the dog, if he just alone jumped in this thing, that would have been the end of him. If she was alone with the snake and there weren't other employees, that likely would have been the end of her. So I guess this could be a cautionary tale to stay close to people if you're doing anything nuts, like handling a Burmese python or jumping into a septic tank in the woods.
Just like you always have someone spotting you when you're bench pressing. You should always.
Oh yeah, I never bench press without a spot.
Yeah, and I just never bench press.
Me neither. I went to the gym once
in your life.
Yeah, with my friend. I had a friend in high school. will know him as Aaron, but it's a different Aaron. I don't know if you know him, but anyway, he he got into weightlifting and like fitness and stuff, and he was trying to get the rest of his friends into it too. And he convinced me and our other friend Brad, who you know, to go to the gym with him. And he was teaching us how to like do these different things at the gym. And one of the things involved Brad like laying on his back, holding 2 weights and like lifting them up. But when he got them up, like his arm like gave out and he dropped the weight on his own face. And, like, we had to leave the gym with Brad like covered in blood from a nosebleed. We thought he broke his nose, but no, it was just he banged his nose really hard. And that was the only time I've ever been in a gym.
Wow.
So long story short, that was just not a good analogy to tell me about getting a spot when bench pressing, because I can't understand what could happen. Well, I guess I can. Brad dropped the weight on his face, and he was lucky we were there to usher him
So
out.
whenever feeding a snake at a zoo or interacting with a snake whatsoever, yeah, you should have a spotter.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, we can start wrapping this up here, but tell me something. You got anything interesting going on? Do you have a secret you want to share? A tale you want to tell?
If I told you a secret, Jordan, it wouldn't be a secret anymore, would it?
I'm not going to. We're not going to share it with
you.
anyone.
Just asked me if I had anything going on or any secrets.
I meant like, will you volunteer a secret?
I can't
Do you have any
volunteer
secrets that you want to?
It wouldn't be a secret if I told you. If I told you a secret, I volunteered it, then it's no longer a secret. It has become out in the open.
You know, they say rules are meant to be broken. Secrets are meant to be revealed. What secret comes to light? Is there not a saying, something like that? I'm just giving you the opportunity to get something off your chest.
You, sir, are dealing with a human vault. And the only way you're going to get a secret out of me is if I'm a vault at the Toronto Pearson Airport and you heist me.
Okay. If I can get and it would have to be an inside job. Who would know your?
It would have to be the mafia. Would have to be involved.
Okay. All right, we're not going to get to the bottom of your dirty secrets. So let's wrap this up.
They're not just because. No, hold on. Even if you're only assuming it's dirty,
probably
that's
is.
not
Why
fair.
wouldn't you,
that's not fair.
Why wouldn't you tell me?
Not all secrets are dirty. Some are financially based and have nothing to do with any kind of eroticism.
All right. I just think if it was financial, you'd have no problem telling me.
That'd be no. I would have if I. Oh my God! If I had financial secrets, I could be thrown in jail.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, forget it.
I'm never trusting you with any private information ever again for the rest of my life now, because you're just frivolous with secrets. You're like, tell me your secrets, by the way. Just tell me them.
All right. Let's wrap this up. We're not going to get your secrets.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Aaron, until next time.
Jordan, until next time.
Think about your secrets, and if you want to reveal them, we can talk offline.
I only reveal my secrets to snakes.
I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I keep Canada weird, but let us also call out to you for even greater support. If something weird happens in your neck of the woods, please let us know. And the best way to do that is by sending a voice memo via nighttimepodcast.com/contact. We both hope to hear from you. Now, I'm going to start wrapping up this episode, but before I do, let me give some thanks. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A shout out to the internet's favorite cult leader, Unicole, who provides this series' intro and outro voiceovers. And lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you to every one of you listening to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, Nighttime would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed, Chandel, Emma, and Kay. Thank you for your generous support. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can help keep Canada weird by simply sharing this episode on social media and telling all your like-minded friends about the great work we're all doing here. If any of you listening have a story idea, want to give feedback on the show, or would like to contribute a voice memo to be aired and responded to in an upcoming episode, please do so at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. Again, we hope to hear from you. But until then, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.